Aloha and welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with your host, me, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have out of this world conversations with extraordinary people. And today I am so excited to have the Usher Channeler, Christin Bjergbakke, on. And we're going to bring her on in just a moment, but just a couple of announcements first. So make sure if you are watching this on YouTube, you like and subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening on any of the podcast outlets, thank you so much. Now, I have a couple of specials I am offering. One is good through the end of the year, but the early bird pricing ends October 31st. So you have just less than a week left. And that is a special channeled message of the year for 2023 from Arcturian Uluru. And you're going to receive a cosmic group of the year with the energies that they can carry and how they can support you in 2023. You'll also have an overall theme that you can pull into, as well as a personalized channeled message of how to use this information for the year ahead. And I have a special optional add-on alien crystal skull that you can use to harness the power even stronger. So early bird pricing ends October 31st for that, but you can purchase that until the end of the year, and the readings will be done by December 31st of this year. I'm also offering a special Connection to the Cosmos bundle, which is good until October 31st. So what you get is a copy of my book, Connection to the Cosmos. You get the Oracle deck, Connection to the Cosmos, and you get a 1-hour Zoom session to meet your galactic family and guides that will be recorded. And I can tell you the sessions that I have done so far, I've done 15 over the last couple of weeks. Everyone has been able to connect, and they have had very powerful, meaningful experiences with their galactic family. So all of that is available on my website, which will be in the show notes, but mysticmanta.com. And without further ado, bringing on Christin. Hi, Christin.
Hello, Lisa. I was going to say good evening, but I know it's morning in your place.
Yeah, well, and whatever time people are listening or watching. So good day.
Yes.
Good day. Let me tell people about you, because we first met when we were co-authors on the Life Reimagined book that Linda Joy put together. And that came out last year. And so we've been wanting to have this conversation since then. And anyway, I'm just glad that you're on the show. So let me tell people about you, because there's a lot here. So Christin Bjergbakke is the Usher Channeler, author, Reiki master teacher, and past life therapist. She's a graduate of Ascended Master Athella. And after having undergone expert training, she is in tune and in sync with the super masters. Christin has received divine training in the Usher Channeling and has ascended with Melchizedeck, developing an intimate connection with the Master. Her role is divinely called and blessed, and Christin is supervised and guided by the Masters as she ascends into the light and offers her services to you. Her advanced team of Masters and Angels consists of Koidesh, Melchizedeck, and Metatron, as well as other super masters such as Archangel Michael, Anaanda and Christ. The Usher Channeler came to Christin during wintertime in the aftermath of a major life change. When Christin accepted the task of becoming the Usher, the channeled messages of love and light began pouring forth from Spirit. This also resulted in her first book, now available as paperback and ebook on Amazon. Christin has been featured in several national magazines, as well as Danish national television, and previously served as chair of the Danish Healers Association for 5 consecutive years. Prior to devoting herself to a life of sharing the life of wisdom and spirit, she completed a Master of Design and worked for 10 years as an exhibitionist architect and project manager, creating museum exhibitions around her country. She lives north of Copenhagen, Denmark, with her twin daughters and Cinnamon, the red cat assistant. Wow.
Yes. Wow. Listening to that, I was like, wow.
Right. Like, yeah. Oh, I'm impressive. So, Christin, there's so much to get into here.
Yeah, I know. We just try to limit ourselves.
Yeah, but I do want to ask first, this is always the first question, I would love for you to let the audience know, what kind of household did you grow up in? What was your backstory in terms of, was it spiritual, religious, or I think Denmark is pretty much of an atheist country, isn't it?
Well, I would like to answer that one first, because I think that is that's such a big difference from the US to Denmark. Because I've been traveling a lot in the States
Yeah.
previously, and you're in line in the supermarket, and people will ask you, which church do you attend, and it will be like a normal conversation, right?
Right.
If you ask somebody that in Denmark, they will be offended, like that is a private thing. I'm not going to tell you if I believe in Christ, right? And they
Yeah.
will actually like kind of like, you are weird.
Uh-huh.
So well, there is a state religion in Denmark. We are Lutherans, most of us, and you
Okay.
actually pay a church tax unless you have to actively say, no, I'm not going to pay to the church. So the official religion in Denmark is Lutheran.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Never mind. Let's not get into that
Oh,
part.
that's
So,
interesting.
but there's a lot of people that don't consider themselves to be religious, and they don't go to church and sect on the big holidays. And I did grow up not in a very spiritual family, not at all, but we went to church every Sunday, and there was Sunday school, and my father would be one of the, I think you would call it, the church elders. And I loved coming to the church, as a kid, and we would do this nativity scenes at Christmas and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it. And then around 17, 16, 17-year-olds, I didn't get what I prayed for, right? It wasn't like I want a pony. It was something specific I really, really, really needed to happen in my life, and it didn't happen. I was like, you can forget about it, okay? um, but growing up, it was like that. Yes, I would say my grace, going to bed at night, and but it wouldn't be something we talked about. It would just be something you would do.
Okay.
Um, and maybe that is a typical Danish way of being believers, of being traditional Lutherans in Denmark. There was nothing spiritual about my upbringing, and I'm the older sister. I have a brother who's 5 years younger than me, and I remember my childhood as feeling alone
Okay.
because nobody really understood me. I guess some of you, perhaps, or some other of the viewers will relate to this. Um, I didn't have a lot of friends, and I didn't really know what to talk about that people would find interesting. I
Okay.
would I would love to be with animals, like horses or cats. Cats are my thing. I would
Yeah.
draw, sketch a lot, stuff like this, sing a lot, and I would be extremely afraid of the dark. And I was that all the way up till I was like 27 or 28. I would
Oh,
be like
wow.
terrified of the dark, and I think now that with all the knowledge and experience I have now, all the training, I can look back and see that I was probably so open and so receiving that I got scared and I shut everything down.
Yeah.
And the thing about being afraid of the dark, I remember living in an apartment in the center of Copenhagen with my first like live-in boyfriend, and with this old apartment, and you had to cross the dining room to get to the bathroom at night, and
Okay.
I would lie awake for hours, because I was afraid to cross the dining room because I was sure somebody was standing there, and at the same time I was like, you're being silly. There's nobody there, right?
Mhm.
And I didn't. Yeah, everything was shut down. Emotions, spirituality, everything completely shut down, until a very late age, I would
Okay.
say.
So then, yeah. So what was the, I guess, catapult for like waking up again and really
Yeah.
tapping into your gifts?
Looking back, I can see that I began to listen without knowing that I was listening to the signs, to my intuition, to people, like guides, going like, go this way, look this, because I began. I have a number of educations, you know, because I never really knew what do I want to do when I was done with college. Or well, we in Denmark we have 10 years primary school, and then you have 3 years what we call gymnasium, and then you
Okay.
go to university if you want to be like a lawyer or a doctor or something like this. So when I
Okay.
was done with my first 12, 13 years, I was like, I had no idea what I should do. I was
Yeah.
good at English, sketching, and horseback riding. It's kind of like, you know, you don't really go far with that. So I would travel and I would work as a waiter and stuff like this. And then at one point I was like, no, I have to get serious. I have to get a regular job, you know, wear a nice dress, go to the office, stuff like this. And so I began that career being a bilingual legal secretary when I was in my mid-20s.
Okay.
And it was really boring. And then at some point, a friend of mine said, how come you don't apply for this design school? And I was like, really? And this, I tried to keep that one short, but that was the first step that I actually began to look at what do I enjoy doing and not what does people around me think I should do or what does the society expect me to do, right?
Right.
Yes. So I applied for this and it's kind of like an elite education, you know, 1,500 people apply, 500 go to a test to get in and 100 get in every year. And I got in at first take and I was like, this is weird. And I had the best time of my life doing this training. And I began then to open up for my sensitivity and my creativity and admitting to myself that, okay, maybe I do have feelings, maybe I do have emotions, maybe it's okay to express my emotions. And that was the first step. And then at a later time, I met the father of my children, and I have identical twins, right?
How old are
And
they now?
yeah,
Oh, I'm curious. How old are they?
they are 18.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, they're 18 now. Wonderful girls. We have so much fun together. But right after the year after, when they were 1 year old, he had a severe depression, stress related depression, complete burnout. And that kind of put the focus on me in a different way because I had to step up, right? I couldn't just keep on doing whatever because he was lying in a fetus position on the floor for months, right? And I had those 1 year old twins. I was trying to have a job. We had a big house, you know, all that stuff. And so I started looking elsewhere. How could I keep myself standing and sane? And from there, I accidentally met a female coach. She was actually a coach I was given through my work at the National Museum of Denmark. And then when everything crashed in my life, I came to think of her. She was like, meek, meek. And I called her and I said, you remember me? I used to come to your office in town. I think you can do more than we did already. Can I come and see you? And she was quiet for, you know, a couple of seconds. She said, okay. And then I came up to her house north of the country and I sat there for hours crying on her couch. And then she said, oh, stand up. And I'm just going to cleanse you. And I was like, yeah. And I was standing there with my eyes closed and she was doing stuff in front of me. And at one point I opened my eye, right? And there was this black substance between us, like moving out of me into her. And I was like, this is really weird, right?
Okay.
And then she learned me how to connect with Mother Earth and Father Sky. And I just had that opening where like, wow, what is this? I have to know more so that I can teach others. And that was the initial starting point. And this woman is now a close friend, and she's still a mentor, but is also a close friend. We live very close by and we help each other. And of course, I've gone far since then, but that was the first part. The mandatory life crisis number one. Right?
Right. I think a lot of people can relate to that. I know I can. We have some parallels here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And because later on, that was the that moved me forward to working with the what do you call that, the Inca tradition, like from Machu Picchu, the Andean tradition. That was my first step into on a personal level, purely just for me. And then, but then, you know, friends became interested and came and asked, and what do you do? And we would try to do it to me. And then led me to a Reiki class. And that led me to the past life therapy. And that led me to becoming a Reiki master teacher. And then suddenly, bam, oh, by the way, I have a really unique channel. And so that was the short version of 16 years, right?
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
So a lot has happened in 16 years. So
I would say.
when, so over the last 16 years, when did you actually turn this into like, this is going to be my business now?
I tried to resist a while, but upstairs department didn't quite agree, At some point, well, actually, from when I took my Reiki 1, my first degree Reiki, at that point, I was a very successful architect, museum designer. I had experience that no one else had in the country. I had a number of jobs up. I had contracts for future jobs. Everything disappeared within a month or two from my first Reiki class. Just like, no, we changed our mind. No, we're going to take one without experience. No. And I was like, what is happening? And I spent a whole year being unemployed, living on my own. My ex-husband had left at that time, and live in this huge country house, 2 little twins, no job, and trying to make a PhD. And then at some point I would do 2 levels. I would say, okay, now I'll do the museum jobs here, and then I'll do the spiritual stuff here, and let's see what catches up. And it doesn't. You can't do 2 at the same time. No.
What do you have to learn?
In there. I know, this is so funny. I remember we have so much in common. So at one point I was doing part-time project management in the event and museum business, and I was like, yes, this is good. I have 3 days paid work a week, and then I can do the other stuff. And then they removed that job as well, and I was like, okay. And at that point I was in another relationship, and I told him, I asked him, how do you feel if I try to go all in on this? And he was very sweet, and he said, well, I think you should do it, and we can manage. So then I could forget about trying to get the regular job and just go for the spiritual part. And that's when I became a Reiki master teacher as well, 2 years of training.
Okay.
So, but I've been doing it full time for perhaps 6 years, and I've been making a living of it for 4 years. Let's put it that way. And I've also been single for 4 years. So that was kind of like, when you need the help, universe helps you to step up, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I resemble all of that so much. I can't even tell you. Yeah. So everything that you've said, I am like, oh, that's me. So, okay. So for the last 4 years of doing this, having it as your real business. So when did the channeling come into play with this?
4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did that happen? Like, tell me what that was like. Because every channel that I've interviewed here, and even my own experience, they're all a little bit different in how it comes in.
Well, 4 years ago, my other relationship ended, and it was very surprising. I had no idea what was happening. It was like from one day to another. Oh, by the way, I would like you to move out. I think you're boring. Okay, well, it's no shame in leaving, and when you're asked to leave, my mother always told me, right? But I was there. My girls were 14. Their dad has never been really fully recovered since, so it's kind of like always been on me. Yeah. I have to be the base of that, And I completely panicked. I was crying for weeks, like, how am I going to support myself and my children? Can this really? And I did this is it, guys. You need to step forward now, and I need help now. And in that transition and that grieving process, I, by coincidence, went to a network meeting, heard about somebody told about a mentor coach she was using. I was like, I need to talk to that woman. And so I found this by accident, coincidentally, this coach, American woman living in Mexico. Let's just say her name is Christina. I don't want to go further into that. And she was amazing. Of course, I know that spirit helped me be in a position where I was able to purchase her services, which was a miracle out of nowhere. I'm like, what? How did they do that?
Yeah.
So I started working with Christina, and her Athella is her master, is the one that she's working with. And along the way, she would give me these tools, and very fast I could notice there was a difference in my mood, in my level of energy, in my way of looking at life and my own possibilities. And my already then clients started coming to me in bigger numbers. And I was just like, this is just for me. I'm just trying to get over my second divorce, right?
Yeah.
and I remember the first time where I was like, there's something going on here. I was on the phone with a close friend of mine. She was having a lot of issues in her family. Her mother was dying of cancer. She was very unhappy. On the phone, she asks me a question, and I remember clearly the feeling that like a part of my brain, the conscious me was pushed to one side, and I started talking through the other side. And I
Okay.
was like, here, so this part was saying like, this is interesting. What am I saying?
Yeah.
And it was just go like, blah, 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 blah. And then we were done, and there was completely quiet. And she was like, what happened? I said, I have no idea. And she said, it was really good advice you gave me there. Well, I'm happy for that. And then I, later on, I told my coach what had happened. And she was just like, yes, I know. I was just waiting for you. So the training I did with her opened up my channel and put me on a higher frequency where I was able to connect with this higher wisdom, and where I was able to extremely fast move forward. And so that was the winter of 2019. It happened just before Christmas, that thing about the brain, the consciousness being pushed aside.
Yeah.
And all my life, I have been blamed by school teachers and friends and parents that I'm too fast. I always shift like this. Stay one place. Don't change your mind all the time. Don't make so many decisions. We can't follow you. You change the subject too fast. Everyone, including my Reiki master, who I cherish above all. But here now with Christina, with the master Athella, suddenly it came to sense that the reason that the ability I have to move from one thing to another is actually one of my superpowers, because I can just jump between dimensions like this.
Yeah.
It doesn't take me that long to, they go like, I'm on, what's your next question? And people are like, they don't know what's going on. So that was something that you always had along the whole life that people would blame you for. And suddenly it made sense.
Yeah.
Can you relate to that one as well, Lisa?
I can completely. And I think that a lot of our audience needs to hear that.
Yes.
Because, I mean, whether that's their superpower, they have other superpowers, but they feel shame or guilt or whatever, because people are like, well, you shouldn't be that way. Yes. But we should all be the way that we were born to be in this specific life.
Exactly.
Right?
And also about so I'm a channeler, and I have a really good hearing. I know, yeah, but I hear things.
Clairaudience is your
Clairaudience, definitely. And then also came to me, I've always had that. Suddenly I'm like, I always heard everything, little noises, I would be the one pulling out the plugs in the rooms because I could hear them go. And people would be like, what are you doing? I was like, well, can't you hear that noise? And they were like, you're crazy, And suddenly it all made sense. I can hear stuff other people can't hear. Again, some of we all born with these different kinds of clairs, right? Some can see, some can hear, some can smell, some can taste. And it's also one of my things when I talk to my students and my clients, to honor your own abilities and your skills. Don't compare. We all do that, but still try not to compare. You have your powers, right? Or whatever. And I remember in the beginning going to my first coach, we would come once a month, a group of women sit in her house and meditate. And the other women would be like, wow, they had these amazing experiences of stars and colors and Madonnas. And I would be like, and I would be very quiet. And I always felt like a little bit embarrassed that maybe I hope they wouldn't notice that I didn't have the same experiences, because maybe I wouldn't be allowed to be back. And I so enjoyed staying there. There was like nothing going, mud, right? Brownish thing. And then one evening we were doing a specific meditation in honor of the Madonna of Guadalupe. And the other women were going like, wow. And I was like, and I was sitting there thinking, if only all that rainbow colored lightning would disappear so that I could see what I'm supposed to see. And it wasn't until on the way home in the car, I suddenly but I see something. I see rainbow colored lighting. And that would be like, oh, it's not that I don't see, I just see something different. And I think that's so important for everyone to remember. Everyone perceives in their own way, right?
Very, very important. And I'm sure that with your past life clients, because I have past life clients as well, and all of the way that they're experiencing those other lives is very different from the next client. Some are highly visual, some are more like, oh, I
Yes.
feel this or I hear this.
Yes.
It all works. It's all good. So
True.
I love that. Do not compare yourself to others, because I think in our society, I don't know about Eastern society, but, Europe and America, we're comparing ourselves to other people and judging ourselves based on that. But we're all here to be just, okay, who is my authentic self? And
Yes.
who am I here to
Exactly.
up to be? And so I love this so much. So when you started channeling, who was the first entity that was speaking through you?
Melchizedeck.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Melchizedeck.
I've heard the name, but I actually don't know. So yeah, and I
Neither did I. Why I'm laughing so, because I was just like, oh yeah, sure, Melchizedeck, yeah, why not? And then Christina was looking at me like, do you know who it is? I have no idea. But if we look at the hierarchy, at the spiritual hierarchy and the levels of consciousness of, like there's planetary levels and galactic levels and universal levels and logo, whatever, and I can't even remember the correct version. But
Yeah.
Melchizedeck, he's up there, right? He's up at the top 3. And he would just start communicating with me, and I would have this name I couldn't pronounce, and I would say it out loud, and then my coach would help me with her master. They were just laughing at me because they knew the whole thing right away, right? And every time I felt his presence during meditations, my daily work, I would feel the word coming to me, Divine Father. And I was like, this is weird, but it felt so nice. So I would always address him, Melchizedek, Divine Father. And he's here now. So he's like, yeah, honey, And then a while later, I found a book. Well, I was allowed to read a book because my coach was very much like, he would give me exercises, do this work at home, do not read about it. And then when I'd done it, like a number, he would give me like, okay, now you can read this paragraph. And it was like, so you had to have your own experience first before you can read what you're actually doing. I hated it back then. I love it now. And I do that to my students as well. Yes. So anyway, I read this text that is channeled from Melchizedeck, where he describes himself as the father or the father-mother, depending on how advanced level you are at. And he's like the creator of some kind. And I've come to think, in some ways, I believe that Melchizedeck, his being, his presence, his energetic field, is what people for thousands of years has considered as God. The old man with the beard.
Okay.
The father, the divine father, because the way he describes himself, and when you start looking for, there's plenty of stuff online about Melchizedeck. This is the image and the sense you get, this very fatherly love and wisdom, very caring, very compassionate, and very, very wise. And he has been, I think there's even in some of the old parts of the Bible, there are scripts about Melchizedeck, and his group, his followers, are the priests of Melchizedeck, that would be healers and stuff like this. Which is, of course, interesting for you to be like, oh, Melchizedeck. And there's also a place you can travel to in your meditations called the Golden Chamber of Melchizedeck. I don't know if you ever heard of this.
I haven't.
And you can access it as a hall, like a huge, like Game of Thrones hall, if you've seen those. So it's like this old ancient castle inside. As I see it, of course, it's not like this in real life, but how I perceive it is like a huge hallway. At the end, there's like a platform and a throne on it. And behind, there's like a glass stained window, and there are columns on the 2 rows of columns. And behind those columns, there are doors. And you can enter this golden chamber and just sit there, just be there, and just be in that really high frequency of light and wisdom. Or you can go behind the columns and you can open the door that appeals to you, and you can have questions asked. You can pick up on wisdom. You can look at, what is happening right now. So you can work with Melchizedeck on different levels, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's
I appreciate you sharing that with the audience, because some people are going to be like, okay, I got to go try that. I got to go do that.
Yes. And I would just say, be careful. I have this, we shouldn't be afraid of working with the divine or with entities, but we should have respect. And we should know what we're doing, or we should find people who can show us how to do it. Because if you are a highly sensitive person with no training at all, and you jump out into doing the wildest things, you can get a little affected, right? You really need to be grounded. You really need to have a balanced root chakra, do some grounding. And when I've said that, I on Mondays this winter, I do free meditations on Facebook. And one of the things we actually done a visit to the Golden Chamber a while ago. So they can look for me somewhere. It's free. It's not like, yeah.
No, and that's actually really, I'm glad you brought up that grounded piece, because even yesterday I was working with a client who's had these really amazing astral travel and out of body experiences and all of these like openings happening for her. And she feels so much out here and not really fully grounded in her body. And so when we were doing the regression, her higher self was like, you need to ground, you need to go meditate in the trees. You need to get your feet on the ground. And one thing that's super cool about our island here, we're on the big island of Hawaii, and we are the root chakra.
But that's perfect, huh, Lisa? That's perfect. Yeah. I always teach my clients and students that I find the root chakra to be the most important one of them all, and they get a little disappointed because they want to focus up here, Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, of course, it's cool, but if you're not grounded, the more grounded, the further you can go, right? But it's so necessary that we stay balanced, grounded. We are here as humans. We're here to learn to be humans. Yes. And then when we have that kind of figured out, then we can go even further, right? Yeah. And that brings me to something that I would really like to just cover. One of the things that I have been told by my team is the importance of our heart chakra. I think you and I we texted a little bit about it, and it began in a past life therapy session with a client where I saw him as a Buddhist monk far back, and he would be sitting on the top, on the roof of the monastery, and he would be sending out the monks to spread the wisdom. And he could sit there and he could open his heart chakra like a satellite dish, and it was so cool to see. And there would be like strings of golden rays or light, and they would connect with these monks going all the way around the globe. And that was the first time I noticed it. I was like, this is really interesting. And then I started focusing on that, looking for that in my clients and in the meditations, asking about it. And it made so many little pieces started falling into place, I heard this. Yes. So what I always teach is that the heart chakra is the bridge that combines the divine and earth in the human shield. As I mean, Metatron has told me, it's the human shield. Okay, we will use that phrase, the human shield. So the more balanced we are in the heart chakra, the more balanced we are in our human lives. And the more we are able to move consciousness out of the head and into the heart space, the more we can move from that 3D to 5D, the more we can connect with our higher wisdom, and the more we can radiate our inner, we can't see it, our inner light to our surroundings. And this is so important. And they really this is something we have to be more aware of. The more people being aware of centering in the heart on a daily basis, the more will we lift up the entire frequency, if that makes sense. Sometimes my English is the love. But
Oh, it's completely spot on, and I have head to toe chills because that's actually one of every time I lead someone through any of the journeys, whether it is a parallel life regression or it's meet your galactic family, or even in my UFO tours when I'm connecting them to like call them in, we're always balancing the chakras, but we're also bringing it into the heart space, sending that love out throughout the universe.
Yes.
And then bringing it back in. Like that is always part of that. And my free gift on my website is remembering the sacred soul love within and really that heart space so that you have to love yourself to send out that love and really connecting there.
Yeah, I'm smiling now because I remember that once in one of our texts or so we figure over, I like, oh, Arcturians. So I'm like, maybe, perhaps, I don't know if there are some, if that is some of the Arcturian stuff, perhaps, or if the Arcturians are more into that teaching and then others are more into other stuff, because you and I both have it, right?
Yes, I would say that is definitely one of their teachings, but also what I have come to really understand about them is, I mean, they're multidimensional. So we have, different Arcturians at different dimensional frequencies. But the ones that are really vibrating at that super high level have that Christ Buddha consciousness energy. That's the level that they're sitting at. And they feel very angelic. And so they really, whether you want to call it angels or Arcturians, it's all the same kind of energy of that love, pure love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It is beautiful. And what I find, when I have clients, I teach Reiki and past life therapy, all that, but I have clients, both live clients, like in-person clients, and I do Zoom programs as well. And it's always this teaching of getting them to move out of the ego and the control into the heart space. And usually I prefer to do this in 3 months programs, because then you can see the results, right? Then you actually have time to do. And every time, and it's always about like 1.5 months, perhaps 2 months into the program, then they do it. And I'm like, yes. and along the way, even I can get like, oh, does this really work? And I have this now, how did it work for me? I'm passing this on in my own version. And I just keep talking to people, this is all, everything is all about getting into that heart space. It doesn't matter if you had a terrible childhood or if you had a terrible adulthood or what it is. But the minute we're able to move that consciousness and stay in the love and the trust, that's when the miracle starts happening. And it's just gorgeous.
It
I
is.
just had I have this VIP client who's an athlete. He's a professional athlete. He's a 5 times world champion in his field. And he started working with me a year ago by coincidence, right? He was supposed to call a healer. He lost the number. He Googled, I popped up, and we've been working together ever since. And a year ago, he lost a match due to an injury. And then the whole year he's been training, not just with me, of course, but with me and others. And he just won that match a year later, and is told like he's in the best shape of his career, everything. And I'm just like smiling. It's just like, oh, it's nice. And you can't really tell people, right? You can't really explain it, but you just know it makes such a big difference that people are able to, when we're able to ignite that inner star in the heart, then we can connect to the higher wisdom, and then we can become the better version of us, right? As humans. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and that is what we need here on Earth right now, with so much fear, so much darkness around the globe. But real quick, just that heart space. I only allowed myself to start actually vocal channeling this year because I had such resistance to it because of how I grew up in a school that was channeled, and there was such stigma, like this cult and this, like, it's channeled, it's, there's all this judgment on channelers. And so I had to really work through my own shit on that to be like, okay, yes, I actually can be a vehicle for this. But the teacher that I had, Kira Schaefer, who was one of my guests, I took her class, and she taught us to really we speak from the heart, like get into that heart space so that whatever's coming forth is from that love space. And I would say there are other channelers out there that don't do that. And so be aware of who you're listening to and what their message is. And is it fear-based or is it coming from that love place?
Oh, that is so, I get goosebumps now just for this. Yes, it is so important because I want to believe that, I really want to believe that everybody is doing what they consider the best to do.
Yes. Yes.
But that doesn't mean that we should just trust everyone. We should always trust our own inner, wisdom and heart, right?
Yes.
And have respect. And
Very,
again, respect. Yes.
very much so. Because there are a lot of, lower dimensional frequency entities that want to come in through people.
Yeah. It's
And,
it's open. It's open. The door's open. Let's have some fun, right?
right.
That's
So for those of you listening that want to work with this energy or like do this, just think about, okay, what is your intention? And if you want really to connect with those higher dimensional beings, you have to learn to raise your frequency, your vibration.
Yes, exactly.
And
very important.
Yeah. Okay, so if Melchizedeck was the first one, how did the others come into you?
Yeah. Sometimes it can feel a bit crowded, but the first, I would say almost the first year, more or less, it was Melchizedeck and Metatron that I was very aware of. That was like, I knew they would present themselves, and you begin to recognize the different energy vibes. And then Anaanda, which was like my personal guide, and she's female, definitely, and she's very beautiful, and she has this, like, when I see her, well, to me, she presents herself as kind of like a Chinese Asian goddess, because she has this robe going down and this long hair and this kimono and stuff. Sorry, we just always see this, and she has like a star. She sprinkles stars somehow.
Okay.
Sometimes
Nice.
you can feel like you get a little star shower.
Okay.
And she would come and present herself as my new primary guide, where Melchizedeck and Metatron, of course, are not my personal guides, but these are the entities, masters, that I work with on a daily basis. When I started 16 years ago, I would have just like a regular spirit team, right? Just no, the regular average one, which were leading me towards next step. But
Right.
now, what I connect to in my daily work with myself and the clients, Metatron, Melchizedeck, Archangel Michael, and Koidesh. And so Metatron and Melchizedeck were the first. I'll get to Koidesh, yes.
Yeah.
And then when I was channeling this book that came immediately after my channel was open, I was like told, you have to do it. And the book was in English, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm Danish, and I started writing in Danish, and I had lunch with a friend, and she said, so I guess you're doing it in English. And I said, why would you say that? That's a weird question. And she was like, well, you're bilingual secretary, and you always. And I was like, So I went home next morning. I said, okay, guys, let's do it in English. And it just opened up the gates then. So the channel book is in English, right?
Yeah.
And when that was done, around 6-8 months later, in a session with a client, because then I would start having channeling sessions with clients, because it wasn't really an option. It would be, I would be sitting with a client for something, and suddenly, you know how it feels, Lisa, they would just be like, boom, going like this on my energetic field, like, and I was like, what is going on here, And then I found, okay, I have to open my mouth and put something forward. And then one day, I can't remember the client. I think that was just any client, but I feel a very different sensation than this when they come from behind and hold in front of you. And it was as if my crown chakra was opening up and going like this.
Okay.
Very powerful. And I was like, what is happening? And at that point, I was still working with Christina and Athella. And I asked, and I just told her I had this experience in a session. It was very different. I have no idea what was happening. And then Christina connected, and she came back and said, it's Koidesh. And I was like, yes, sure. And she was very like, don't worry, just do what you always do. Don't think about it. And I was like, why would she say that? And so I just did as I always did. And then later on, I found out that when you look at the hierarchy, I don't have the book nearby, but there's this guy from California, he's not here anymore, Jason Stone, something like that, whatever. He wrote a number of books on ascension training, and he has this diagram of the hierarchy. And when you look all the way up at the top and you say source, all the way up, above source, there's like this 12 rays, and each ray is like some kind of like a council or a group. And Koidesh is one of those 12.
Okay.
And first, when he came to me, I would do public channeling events, and my assistant would be in the back opposite me. And she said the first time he came, it was like she was being blown backwards. And he would present himself as King of 12. And I was like, okay, it was very powerful.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure. So I would just say this, Koidesh, King of 12. And then along the way, because this was like, so 3 years ago, I started working with Koidesh. And I don't know how this feels to the viewers here, but to the audience. But at first, I was certain it was one guy. It was a king. It was a big, powerful one. Now I'm not so sure anymore. Actually, I think it's the group of 12.
Yeah.
So Koidesh are 12. There's not so it's not like one person. It's like one of the 12.
Right.
But in that, there are even more. We don't know. As humans, we would like to be, there's one, and there's one, and I can, yeah. But it's
categorized.
Yeah, because they will still connect with that specific. I get this very physical sensations so that I know who is present, because I don't really see Koidesh. I just sense it. But there will be different personalities. And in the beginning, I was confused. It's like, this is weird. It feels different. There is one coming through with Koidesh where my hands will start go like this, as if I'm like painting, and I will have my eyes closed, and I will be this. Oh, it's that one. And others will be more powerful. So I think it's like a group of very highly evolved entities, and they are called Koidesh as a one, as a unity.
Yeah. Got it.
But I had the funniest experience with Koidesh once. I was doing a podcast. I think it was an Australian podcast, and the interviewer asked a question that they obviously thought was hilarious. So they start laughing, and my whole body is like shaking because they are laughing. And I'm like, this is really weird. And I started laughing. And it was so funny. I'd never experienced anything like that before. So they, as I always say, they have a great sense of humor upstairs department. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're channeling, so you work with the private clients, but you've done group channelings as well.
Public events before COVID.
Was that kind of a Q&A kind of thing, or that's just you getting up and you're teaching, or a combination of that?
No, in the beginning, I wouldn't open up too much for the Q&A because I was really like, they tell me I should do this. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I would just like open occasionally question. But I would always, what I'm doing now, I have a class whole winter. We're meeting once a month, which is a public event, but people can sign up. And so there is a guided meditation. Then I open up for the channeling. Then there's a break where they can write down questions, and they will give me, I will take pieces of paper with the questions on. Usually I won't open them. And then I will pick them one at a time, and I will channel the reply to people. Yes.
Okay.
And that's the public events. Yes.
Yeah.
With the private events, with the private sessions, sometimes the master and present will say directly to the client, do you understand me? Do you have questions? Other times they will just be, this is it. And then they will turn it off. And then I will kind of like relate to the questions afterwards. So it depends a little bit.
Okay. And do you decide who's coming through you, or do they decide who's coming through you?
Yeah.
Since you have multiple.
It's a good question. Because I would like, they decide. But then sometimes I'm like, how about I decide today? So I will in advance say, how about we work, how about Metatron, we work together today? And then that's fine. But I'm like, who gave me that idea that it should be Metatron that day? If you get me. I had a private client yesterday. I did ask specifically for Melchizedeck, and he came forth. So I think it's a mix of who is present in the room.
Right.
Who has something to say, right?
Okay. Yeah. Well, and so I'm just going to ask, and it's okay if the answer is no, but is there anyone that wants to share any messages today to our audience?
Yeah. But it's more like they're like, yeah, sure. We can
They don't
we
have
can.
to. I'm just asking, just.
So I can't promise it will be anything really sensational, but mm, but it keeps being Melchizedeck popping up. So maybe he will just give us a greeting.
Okay.
Greetings, children. Thank you for inviting me today. We are always present. We are always watching. And you are always connected, protected, loved, blessed. We know times are not easy. And you are doing a wonderful job being you. You signed up for this job, but perhaps you forgot. Everything that is happening according to plan. Do not concern yourself with worrying, revenge, anger. This is not for you. You stay in love, light, and compassion. And by that, you will change the consciousness of your surroundings. You are loved. You are abundance. You are blessed. Ashta, Chamin, Nay.
Thank you.
Hmm.
So, okay, I do have a question. So when they come through you, are you listening to what they're saying? Like, do you have a memory of what they're saying?
It's like, yes, I listen, but I can't hear the whole thing. I listen, it comes word by word, and I hear word by word. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that I can be like looking at that word, like,
Yeah.
what? Where will this lead? Am I making this up? Is it coming from where? But I have this the word will be here,
Okay.
very physical, and I
Yeah.
have to let it out, and then the next word will come.
Okay.
So I don't have complete sentences. I have that word by word,
Yeah.
and I like now it's more or less gone, except the last part. That was something for us specifically. Like fingers like this, because I was like, okay, this is new, and I was almost trying. I was trying not to let it out because I thought this is no. So in the end, there was something else, right? There were some words in another language or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, this was for you, Lisa, or for yes, okay, because now everything goes. This is not normal. What happens in the channeling, especially the public ones, no.
Okay.
So and I have no idea what it meant.
I,
Sometimes those words just have to be said. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
It's
They
kind
just
of
have
like
to be.
light language where it's an energetic thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
got chills all over.
Oh, that would be fun. It would be fun to see what happens with that one. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Can I ask you a question? Because now we're doing this on online. Did you have any sensation listening to the channeling when it's online? Because I know people have, when they're in front of me, they are like, they really feel the shift in the room.
Yeah, I could feel the difference of energy coming through the computer screen. And I mean, I know, like, I've seen enough channeling. Like, I know the energy difference coming through the body and just even physiologically watching it, the voice changing, everything.
The voice
But
is so weird. Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I definitely felt it. I can imagine in person, it's probably even like stronger, just because of the other channelers that I've seen on video when I was a kid versus when I was like in person next to that entity coming through that body, and I'm like,
Yes.
whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always interesting to me to listen, and because I can't see myself, right? I mean, I have my own little thing here going on, and it's kind of like I'm like falling into myself. That would actually be what I'm experiencing. Like my consciousness is
Yeah,
moving in, so, and then something else is there. And I know sometimes people will be sitting in front of me at public events, and if they have that special skill, they say, "But you are glowing. You're like, your light is going like this," and I'm like, "Oh, really?" So yeah, I was just curious, but
yeah. Well, I mean, what I know about that is like when to be able to channel that kind of higher level energy, your vibration has to be so elevated, and
it is.
so you are vibrating, and that's where the glow comes from.
Yeah, and it is due to the training I've received through Christina, Athella, Melchizedeck, and on a daily basis, because I can only channel when I keep up my practice, personal practice. But everybody can learn it. It doesn't mean that everybody has to be great channelers, but everybody can learn to raise their personal frequency to a higher level so that we become our own channel for our own higher wisdom, right?
Yes,
So
and
yeah.
even if it's just you channeling your higher self, which ultimately we are all
Very
connected. We are
important.
all
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
But yeah, we
Yeah,
all can get the answers for ourselves. It's just a
me
matter of
too.
being willing to practice and being
Yes,
open for that.
yes. And
But
centered in the heart.
centered in the heart for sure.
Yeah.
Now, for those who are like, I just want to actually have other people channel for me, how can they find you? Do you do?
Yes. How can they find me? Yes, they can. My website is usherchanneler.com,
Okay,
and
that's
there
good.
are that's pretty easy. Yeah, and there is like you can book like a 15-minute coffee date for free if you just want to see if you think I'm the right one for you. And of
Yeah.
course you can book sessions. I do single sessions. I do like 2-week programs, and I do 1 monthly or 3 months programs. So you can do the big thing or you can do the short thing. But I would
Yeah.
say I do what I call ascension training, right?
Mm.
So you don't have to be very spiritual, but if you are there where you want to wake up and lift yourself to that higher level to find out all that you are, the ascension training, I offer that. But I also offer plainly personal channeling and soul coaching, life advice, right? Yes.
Okay. Yeah, beautiful. Well, and what social media outlets are you on where people might
I'm on
follow?
Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, and it both it's with the Usher Channeler as well. Yes, and I can later on when you publish this, I can put some in the a link in the notes,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, if that's possible. Yeah, yeah.
Yep,
Mhm.
absolutely. Well, we are out of time. I feel like I need to have you back on sometime because
That would
there's
be my pleasure.
more that we could explore with this. And you know, every channeler that's come on has something beautiful to share, that it validates the other ones, but it also is something new and fresh to bring
Yeah,
to the audience. And so
yeah.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me. And, we're 12 hours difference here. I'm in Hawaii, you're in Denmark, but for those on mainland in the US, it's way easier to connect time wise
Yes, it is.
with Kristen. And
I have U.S. clients, Canadian clients, and so it is possible to connect that way. Yes.
okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for those listening or watching. I appreciate you. We love your comments and feedback. And I'll
Yes.
see you
Thank
next
you.
time. Aloha.